Vertus Pro are the best team in the world. No glaze. Pioneering a whole bunch of comps, oftentimes wacky character choices, possessing the world's longest win streak in Marvel Rivals history, and doing it all in an organized and faultless manner, almost every single time. And they've actually been doing this since before the game came out, obviously in MRC, or should I say the MRC equivalent of the Alpha and Beta tournaments. They were going under the name Team Cats, and they were absolutely dominating. Of course, the common belief is that this was only allowed to happen because I wasn't competing in Europe at this time, but I've managed to find footage of their gameplay from when they were called Team Cats, so let's analyze why exactly they were so successful so early on. I'm specifically showing you the Psylocke's POV because I want you to think about what you can see. Sparker is so patient when it comes to securing kills. The enemy team you encounter has extremely talented players, a lot of them coming from pro backgrounds of other games, but I really do think that Vertus Pro's Overwatch background separates them and adds a different layer of class. Remember, these VP boys are some of the best Western Overwatch talent we've ever had, and where I think it's most clear is looking at their pathing, their engaging, and their disengaging. Now, in more simple terms, that's basically where they're walking, where they're starting the fight, and where they're ending the fight. In this clip, you can see Sparker meticulously calculating when to go in. He starts by applying side pressure, then boom, he goes in when the enemy low-key TPs. Oh, but Cuffy, the enemy team clearly suck. Why are they all walking in a straight line? Well, voice in my head, they don't suck. Just listen to this take from this extremely handsome and talented and frankly underrated Rivals coach. Look at the way that they're playing, either on their own expecting to do something and immediately dying, or completely stationary, static, all bunched together. Why exactly is it like this? Well, going back to my theory on the natural progression of games, this was a state in Overwatch's lifespan where people were just getting to grips with the heroes that they were playing, as the more complex laws of the game had not yet been established. Isn't his voice so dreamy? If you want to hear more of that voice, you should check out that video. But not before you finish watching this video and liking this video and subscribing to my channel, hitting the notification bell, and finally inquiring about coaching, because if you message me on Discord right now, we have 50% off of all sessions. Now, back to the video, VP look a lot more organized, but why is this? It's no secret, honestly, but they did have access to something extremely tiny and nuanced that I like to call map control. And you'd be surprised that as of Ignite, teams are only just now getting to grips with this concept, which means that all of these teams, these big competitors in EU, were actually closing the gap between them and Vertus Pro. And to be honest, Vertus Pro's gaps had been getting exposed for quite a while before. Cut back to the Marvel Rivals Invitational, around 4 months ago. Vertus Pro had to play against a team called Team Peps. And although this Peps roster has changed a lot, as a coach I've always had a lot of respect for the ownership and the coaches and the assistant coaches and the managers on this roster. And the reason for this is they had clearly seen similarities between Marvel Rivals and Overwatch also. And the first way that they demonstrated this was by spawn camping, which is the concept of taking fights right outside of the enemy's spawn on payload maps. And the logic of this is to kill the clock, TP back, take more fights, and hopefully making the enemy team burn their ults in their own spawn as the final sort of benefit. Now, I can't say for sure that Peps were the first team to do this because I know VP were also doing it early, but Peps were the best at it. And I know what you're thinking, why have you devoted an entire segment to speak about spawn camps? Well, the Peps coaches drilled this strat completely focusing on defense theory and map theory and also map control. In order to beat VP, they had to become VP. which means that at least in Europe, they were the second ever team to think about the game in this way on this scale. This was the clearest sign of evolution in Marvel Rivals. What were the words that I specifically used to describe Vertus Pro earlier? Organized and structured. Vertus Pro loaded into every game expecting to be able to play their game. Peps holding close meant that they couldn't walk. And if they can't walk, they can't develop an angle. And when they did finally win a fight, they were having to make the same plays that they were expecting to make with significantly less time on the board. That's gonna make you feel uneasy. Don't believe me? Just look at this final fight.
Find that momentum and start going. Last stand is available for Fi. He's just able to take a player out in the back alley and just assassinate them for the most part. But hardest now, their own Kraken's impact. Fate of both worlds, keeping people alive, keeping people going, and finally there's an opening. This could actually be a first point hold for Peps.
A double up of Lunar Snow Ultimates right here. Quite the show being put on as Saipe dances in tandem with Natlox. But guess what? Leaf is ready. The last stand is prepared. And it seems like it's one last stand here.
Now, after watching that back, you'll wonder, why aren't Peps just the best team in the world? Well, the simple answer is spawn holding is an extremely niche part of the game. Well, it can only really work in certain game modes, and then on top of that, certain maps of certain game modes. But this is where Rad EU comes into play, as they were able to take these compositional and structural theories and apply it to other maps. So with that being said, we've just looked at Vertus Pro's first ever map loss. Let's go into their first ever series loss. This map takes place in the $3 million Ignite tournament, and at this stage, the winner of the games were the first person to take 2 maps. We're gonna start watching from map 2, however. I'll begin by saying the comps that both teams were playing in this map were very insightful. It's a triple res mirror with mag band and Rad opting to pick the Venom. Now, with those things in mind, Rad just needs to figure out when they Venom engage and when they Starlord spin. And more importantly, where on the map you're looking to do that. The reason why, from a coaching perspective, I like Rad's decision to play triple res in comparison to Vertus Pro's is because it's extremely defensive sided. Triple res is a good comp. Is it good for winning fights? No. So if a team was to go into a map, they would actually benefit from trying to force as many fights as possible, playing the game mode smart, and more specifically in a mirror, making sure that they don't have less reses than the enemy team. What's the best way to do this? Honestly, forcing out their resources as fast as possible. Triple res has a lot of strong cooldowns, but it also has a lot of long cooldowns, so the team that exploits this the best will end up winning. This technically means that fight number 1, the fight where everyone has the same amount of resources, the same amount of reses, is the most difficult fight to win. Thankfully, Rad were able to do this despite the fact that their Venom was the first person in the entire game to die. Trust me then swapped his Venom pick to a Doctor Strange, which in my opinion is worse, but I'm not gonna question his mind. The most significant thing, however, was the fact that Rad only used up one of their reses in first fight. Not only did Vertus Pro lose the fight, but they also used all 3 reses before they decided it was over. Now, when you do the maths, Vertus Pro only had 3 minutes to take the point. By the time they get all of their reses back, it's looking more like a minute and a half. I'm not gonna lie, already the boys at VP should be asking themselves how worth is it actually sticking on this comp. We know that the comp only has 1 DPS, which means that the neutral is not going to be stronger than the majority of other comps out there. Rad's res advantage isn't currently at full strength, so surely leaning into something that has better gunfights, has a better neutral, could increase Vertus Pro's chances of winning. Even when you consider that there is no mag in play, which means that they can't bubble spin anymore. And there are plenty of things in the game that can exploit a lack of Magneto's presence on the enemy team. I don't know, I just personally think the gamble's worth it because in a professional setting, in this comp matchup, the game could potentially already be lost. Which in a way is crazy because we're like 1 minute in. Now, if we skip ever so slightly, as we're entering the first ult fight, Rad structure themselves extremely well. Look at how they're zoning Vertus Pro out, keeping them confined in this small space. Trust me doesn't overstep corners, the whole team is applying a great amount of pressure. This is the perfect example of them burning resources but also playing around that group win condition on the enemy team. Rajaro takes a slight off angle before engaging with the Emma ult. An Emma ult that successfully forces an enemy Mantis ult, and an almost instantaneous follow up from Trust Me with a strange ult, obviously with the potential to kill through. This and the context of what happened in fights before bleed into a chain reaction. Vertus Pro had no personal reses, which meant they couldn't turn a fight with that team up ability, which then means that they're forced to Adam Warlock ult. And just like forcing out their personal reses first, using an Adam Warlock ult first is oftentimes a bad thing. And Rad recognized this, they popped their Adam ult second, and it's not even a super crazy ult play, it doesn't have to be. It's almost like a contingency plan. If they pop it now, it's a guaranteed fight win, but if they don't pop it, they still could lose. Another thing that I don't necessarily think was appreciated about this play is opting to use a big res now means that Rad still have their personal reses at their disposal. This is going to become increasingly significant because Vertus Pro have all of their reses back. So now looking back, if Rad used their reses up, they would have likely lost final fight. We are now in a situation where both teams had equal advantages. It would have literally been a coin flip, but Nevix does exactly that. He flips a coin, it lands on int, so he ints. At this point for Vertus Pro, it's looking rough. What looked like a potential 1 minute long dogfight is gonna have to look like a 15-second recontest TP play, also dogfight. And as you're about to see, this play that Rad keep on doing, strange ulting the Mantis ult, going straight into an Emma grab, is gonna work once again. I can't give this justice, so I'm gonna hand it over to the casters to let them know how momentous this occasion was.
They need to keep conversing, they need to keep contesting. Naga's shutting them down as they go. The Blaster Barrage is so much damage. Vertus Pro, the polar bears they can't touch.
Full hold. It's full hold.
So what's happening right now? Rad are trying to figure out what comp they beat VP on. Whilst they're doing this, you might as well drop me a like, a subscribe, and hit that notification bell once again, just in case you forgot the first time. Now, let's get back to the video. Rad EU did not play a noble game on their attack, but realistically, they didn't need to. Instead, they just went hard counters to the comp that they thought the enemy team was gonna be on. Think about it, if we just played triple res on defense and we full held, and you guys are clearly capable of playing triple res as well, on top of the fact that triple res is clearly defender sided, why wouldn't Vertus Pro opt to play triple res there? So Naga goes to the Psylocke, which is a character that can easily force out resources and potentially get picks, which may even out the playing field when it comes to getting reses out too. Melio goes Punisher, which is a hard character to groot, especially on a map like this with the long sightlines. Fate sticks to the Cloak and Dagger, that blind is going to provide a bunch more frontline pressure. Trust Me has also matched a Groot. As someone that loves running triple res, Groot is a big hard counter to cutting LOS between the front line and the back line, but it also has very good synergy for the friendly Punisher. As fight number 1 goes by, it honestly wasn't taking the best from Rad, but remember what I said about bleeding these enemy reses over time. Rad successfully get a pick on the Mantis, forcing her res out, which means that they only have 2 more reses that they need to worry about getting out in the next minute and a half or so. But that's not the biggest thing that happens. Fate has somehow managed to build up a Cloak ult. Now, you'll realize that the Cloak ult is one of the most frequently used ultimates to engage in pro play because it tends to build up very fast. And you can see that Vertus Pro actually do build up an Invis Woman ult and a Mantis ult very soon after. But that Cloak ult is just so much better than both those ults combined, it's still a valid win con. You see, Fate engaging with a Cloak ult is not looking to win with that Cloak ult. Hero shooters are all about cause and all about effect. If Fate makes this play, Vertus Pro have 2 choices. Number 1 is to back up, number 2 is to start burning their own ults. But both of those scenarios involve Vertus Pro grouping up. So what do you think Trust Me did? How do you think he reacted? My Groot player with his Groot ult absolutely sends one flying and hits it so big. I honestly did want to take a moment to give Fate his flowers though, because the positioning of that cloak ult was perfect. Everyone on his team continued to press Q, pop ults, gaining momentum and inevitably winning the fight and handing Vertus Pro their first ever series loss.